So today we need to break down yet another notable hire that Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes have made, this time getting a defensive analyst from LSU in Patrick Hill, a name that the college football world may not be super aware of now, but give it time, and like Nick Williams, I think this is a name that you need to know. So today we need to break down this hire, talk about why I think it's so good and everything in between. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill, I've got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, Y for yes, N for no. Are you excited that Coach Prime gets in Patrick Hill? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And Patrick Hill was an analyst for LSU who worked with the defensive side of the football. And even then, he's a young guy who's had an extensive history working at multiple different places. Whenever we look at the areas Patrick Hill has coached, he's coached in Kentucky, he's coached in Louisiana, he's coached in Virginia, he's coached in West Virginia, Michigan, and Illinois. And that's important because that gives him an understanding of all of those recruiting grounds on top of just having worked with LSU. And we know what LSU does on the recruiting trail. They recruit as well as any institution in the nation, and we're going to dive deeper into that in a little bit. As an analyst, Hill is somebody that LSU utilized extensively to try and bring in recruits. And one thing I talk about at length, I think it's very telling that when recruits talk, you listen. But listen carefully, because a lot of people are trying to point out nuggets of where is this kid going. Me, on the other hand, I'm interested in some other things. And one of the things I'm constantly interested in is whenever you're talking about the relationships you have with a school, what coaches are you bringing up? And for instance, whenever we look at a Sterling Dixon, a top 300 player in the class of 2023, whenever he was asked about his relationships with LSU, he talks extensively about how Patrick Hill had formed a great relationship with him. That's great. Whenever you're hearing recruits talk about an analyst saying, hey, this is a dude that's forming great relationships with us and they're utilizing him. That's exciting. And if you're Colorado, one thing I've maintained is that right now, talent acquisition is the name of the game. You need to stack talent, and then you develop the talent. And when we look at this coaching staff that Coach Prime has assembled, they're heavyweight recruiters all over the place. Whether we're talking about Charles Kelly, whether we're talking about Coach Prime himself, which has been a guy that's moved the needle so much, he flipped the #1 player in the nation from a Power 5 school to an HBCU in Travis Hunter, who then in turn followed him to Colorado. So we know Coach Prime moves the needle. You put him with Charles Kelly, you put him with Nick Williams, and now you get him a Patrick Hill, who has all of these recruiting grounds that he's familiar with, plus the state of Louisiana where he just came out of. I think that's palpable. I think it's a great hire, and he's going to be working with Nick Williams on that defensive front, something I'm really excited to see, because Patrick Hill, like Nick Williams, is an analyst that when you start listening to these recruits, you hear their name. And I think that's notable. I'm super excited to see what the future holds for Patrick Hill. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for him, but I also think it makes a ton of sense for Colorado. You need guys who are going to relate to these kids, who are going to build relationships with these kids. And when we listen to the recruits that have talked about Patrick Hill, that's exactly the feedback we've gotten. So he's a young coach, largely unknown, but I do think this is a really solid hire by Coach Prime because he's a guy that recruits have talked very highly about. And as I always say, talent acquisition is the name of the game right now for Coach Prime in Colorado. Super interested to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about this. That's it. See you.